With the release of Plasma 6.7 recently, we saw the return of the Oxygen theme from KDE 4. This is the light variant, and around about here is the dark variant. This work is being spearheaded by Philip Feeler, along with the original designer of the theme, Nuno Pinheiro. So whilst there are areas where things are still not perfect and still need a lot of work to be done, having that designer on board gives you an indication of where to actually go. And as I said I would, I have been playing with the Oxygen theme for the past couple of days, so let us go and talk about it. Honestly, I think it looks pretty damn good. Now, the way that I like to run it and the way it's going to look out of the box for you is going to be a little bit different. There's some settings that kind of need to be set to get this kind of Oxygen look and feel, which I don't know if are even part of a theme to be set. So when you download it, you will get the global theme that can be set, and the image that we have here, this looks mostly in line with what I am seeing here. Why did it open on the wrong screen? Mostly in line with what I'm seeing here. I don't have a floating bar. I'm not a fan of the floating bar, but this is what you would expect. However, make sure if you want it to look exactly like this, you have the wallpaper, because the wallpaper actually is important here, set to the Horus wallpaper. Horus is one of the wallpapers made by Nuno Pinheiro, and honestly, I do kind of like it. There's also the Air variant as well. This one I'm less of a fan of, but I still do think it looks pretty good. So a big part of the coloring you're seeing here is pulling the accent color from the wallpaper. So to make sure that is being done, go to Colors and Themes, go to Colors, and have this set here, Accent Color from Wallpaper. If you want to still have it look in this kind of vibe, change it to a color that is a tealish kind of color as a custom accent color, and then that's going to work. Because if I go and set it to the color I actually use, now we get this. And this is probably more in line with what you're going to see on your system, whether you have a yellow accent color, a green accent color, a blue accent color, anything else like that. It is going to be tinted by that coloring. And honestly, in my opinion, I'm not the biggest fan of that being done. Personally, what I like to do is make use of my custom color that is I think I just use regular red, set that, and then I have a slightly modified version of the color scheme, which goes and removes it. So it's now this dark gray kind of vibe. Also slightly modified the white being used for the headers and a couple other little things. That is done by going and changing this setting here, tint all colors with accent color to off, and then learning what each of the colors in here is actually going and doing. It's not always entirely clear. You're probably going to make some mistakes, and you're probably going to run into things, be like, why is that the color being set for that? But it's getting closer to the kind of thing that I like. This is more in line with what I want to see from a theme. And this is the nice thing about KDE. If you don't like the color scheme exactly the way it is, it provides nice tooling to modify it without going deep into theme customization. Now that it's like this, I can go and change the wallpaper to anything I want. I'm going to stick with waterfall because I am a big fan of this. The problem now is I'm not a giant fan of the glow. The glow isn't bad. I like having the glow, but the blue glow is kind of intended for the blue accent tinting that is being used out of the box. With anything else, I think it looks a little bit off. So if we go back into Colors and Themes, go to the window decorations, we can now modify this. Go to the shadows, and there's a couple of settings in here I personally mess with. I disable the outer color. I also make the glow a little bit smaller, and I change the inner color into a red. And for me personally, this is what I like to go with. So this is how I have been running Oxygen. I do need to slightly modify that blue in Dolphin, apparently. I kind of missed one color. Okay, my bad. This is the way that I have been running Oxygen. This is the way that I have been vibing with it. I know it's nice to have things accented. I know it's nice to have this like color tinting, and this is something which has basically entirely gone away with modern themes, but I will acknowledge the fact that I have been psyoped into liking dark gray themes. If you want to tint it though, if you want to use it the way it's sort of intended out of the box, you can very easily just keep doing that or modify it exactly the way that you like it. Speaking of the glow though, this is something you don't get with regular Breeze. I don't like this about Breeze, but regular Breeze windows do not have a colored border. If you have it there, you know it's in focus because your cursor is on it and the heading slightly changes brightness. I don't like that. I don't like that. I'm so used to having a border color, so even just this by itself is kind of enough to sell me on Oxygen. I don't actually need to even talk about the rest of it. That by itself is enough, because before I was using Classy, I've messed around with some other things. Classy's a little bit buggy in that regard. This actually makes Plasma way better for me. Just this by itself, ignoring the rest of it. But the rest of it is also very nice as well. One thing you might have also spotted is I'm not using the Oxygen cursors. There are cursors. If we go to pointers, there are a few variants we can go with. There is Oxygen blue, there is Oxygen black. Black I really don't like. I think a cursor needs an outline. Not having a bright outline with a dark cursor is just It doesn't work in my mind. There's Oxygen white, which I don't hate. I'm not a big fan of white cursors anymore, but I don't hate it. Oxygen yellow and Oxygen Zion. This one is kind of like Proto Breeze. It's very similar to Modern Breeze, but with a gradient on it with a bit more depth. If I was going to use any of these, I would use this one. However, the reason I stick with default is sometimes cursors just randomly don't get loaded by certain applications. I do not want to have to go and work out why they're not functioning. So all I do is just use the default and everything is fine then. I am comfortable with the default and that's the way I like to do things. Anyway, that's how we get it looking the way that I like it to look. If you don't like it like this, that's fine. You don't have to use it like this. The options are there to configure, and I'm still tweaking a couple of little things when it comes to the specific colors being used, as you might have spotted with the blue line in Dolphin, which I am not sure how to fix, but I will take a look at the color scheme and try to deal with that one. I think the thing that stands out the most with Oxygen is the panel, because this panel is like nothing you see today. This is not just a semi-transparent panel. Let's go and modify this so it doesn't dodge the windows. Always visible. And let's say I put this window, where you have these little buttons here, behind the panel. This is a radial blur. So if you have a complex wallpaper with a lot of things going on, you're not just going to see the wallpaper behind it. The panel is going to be tinted. It's going to be accented by that complicated look behind it. And this radial blur, I know, is like a technical nightmare to get working. And then having this white line, which is kind of like the light bleeding out of the panel. I know it's a technical nightmare to have working properly. I think it looks really good though. It is very subtle, but it is one of those things which I think really brings the rest of the theme together. Without that being there, I don't think Oxygen actually properly works. Same with the title bars. Maybe it's hard to see, but these title bars aren't just like a flat color, and they're not just a regular gradient. This, I'm pretty sure, is a radial gradient as well. There is a lot of use of radial blurs and radial gradients in Oxygen, which all sort of act as this defining, merging property. And with this radial gradient, you also might see the color from that header bar bleeding down the side of the application window. So that as well is not just a solid color. It's dark down here and then becomes bright up here because you have this bright light spot in the center. It's all of these very little subtle things that, whilst it is part of that era where things were starting to flatten out. This is from like that Vista era, that Snow Leopard era, where we still had this skeuomorphic design, but it was that transitionary stage. And I think this is possibly my favorite era of interface design. Up here, I have this digital clock, and I like the digital clock. However, if you want a clock that really aligns with this, you've got to make use of the analog clock. The analog clock, which you might have just seen in K-Clock. This is straight out of KDE 4. I think for me, it's a bit much. It's a bit too textured. I am not the biggest fan of this. However, this is another one of those things which really only exists because of that time. And again, you have this circular light, this radial light, and everything here is round and circular. And obviously, you have this very in-depth skeuomorphic design, which just would not be done today. And it's honestly such a nice change of pace. You might also notice there, when we had that widget panel open, it also kind of matched the rest of the design we're seeing here. So these floating panels, these are also making use of that same sort of panel, radial blur, radial gradient design with the light bleeding down, and everything here fits that vibe. Now, obviously, there's going to be some parts where things don't fully align. There are areas where things just didn't exist back when this was being made, and, you know, it just wouldn't make sense. You might notice some of the icons, they're not icons that really fit, right? Like the input method one, this is not made for Oxygen. This is a fallback icon. There's icons all over the place, which are not the KDE 4 icons. They're not new icons that have been made for Oxygen. They're just fallback icons that are there. There's still a lot of work to be done on the icon design, because icon design, especially when you're dealing with complex icons like this, is really difficult and really time-consuming. You might be able to pump out a bunch of flat icons, but when we're dealing with something a lot more complex, for example, let's open up the weather application. This is very clearly still just using regular old Plasma design. You have the icons, you have the bar, but it's definitely not all the way there yet. This is not even remotely approaching anywhere near complete. Same with things like the window overview. It has regular Plasma blur. It does have the Oxygen icon and the Oxygen search field, but there's definitely something that can be done here to bring it more together, or especially the tiling editor. The tiling editor, it has the panel here, it has the icons, but the rest of this is just regular old Plasma. I think a lot of the fun that I'm having right now is trying to work out what works and what doesn't work, what really fits in with the vibe, and what could be improved. One of the things that does work really well is the media player. Honestly, this one fits in absolutely perfectly. There is basically nothing that needs to be changed here. This is exactly the vibe that things should be going for. Honestly, you just don't see environments like this anymore, and it is such a nice change of pace, because whilst I do like Breeze Dark, and I do think Breeze Dark is the best default theme we have on the Lynx desktop right now, this is so nice to be different. It's so nice that not every single thing is flat, and yes, there are things to be improved, and yes, there are things to change, and yes, there definitely could be better things, but I can't even bring myself to hate it, because it's something actually different. It is not just like a third-party theme, it's something actually different that is being promoted by the main project. One area which does look really good is the menu here, the application launch, whatever they call it, I actually don't know. It does have the old KDE icon there, which is kind of nice. This, I think, does work really well. Also, anything like this does have a radial blur behind it as well. Things like this one here also make use of the same thing. Basically, anything coming out of the panel is going to make use of that radial blur. And it looks... It does look really good. One area which I did kind of skip over that has a couple of problems is the editor view here. This just has a black bar. This probably should be some sort of, oxygen-like panel here. Maybe change the blur as well. This has the same problem that the overview had, right? Where it's not using the oxygen style blur. There's so many of these little places where you can keep modifying things forever and ever and ever. And I do hope there are improvements that continue to be made here that make it so it's not just, oh, we took KDE 4's Oxygen and brought it back for Plasma 6 and it mostly works, but modify everything that can be modified to really make this actually modern Oxygen. This is Oxygen, which takes everything about modern Plasma and brings it all in line. Now, one very notable area of problem is with GTK stuff. So you can do GTK. It's going to function. However, this is not a GTK theme. This is taking the KDE color theme, applying a tint, it's using the icons, and it works. But you can very clearly tell this is not what Dolphin was doing. Dolphin is making use of those KDE widgets, and it all properly fits together. If you're using any GTK apps, this is where it mostly starts to break down. But if you're using GTK apps on KDE, you probably expect that to happen anyway. However, then you can clear your palette by looking at Kdenlive. There's just something about Kdenlive. I've got the wrong color scheme on here. Let's change it to that one. There is something about Kdenlive making use of this Oxygen design, which I actually do really like. This is another area where I'm going to mess with the accent colors, apparently. Why is that orange? I'm not actually sure. I think that might be the default color it's using. I like it. I really do like it. And being an application that is part of the KDE suite, we can also see this nice little thing here as well, where the color from the header is actually bleeding out into the application as well, which I understand has been very difficult to have working properly. Also, whilst I personally don't use it, if you're making use of the Plasma Login Manager, that is also going to look wrong, because there are limitations on Plasma Login Manager theming. You actually cannot, in the current state, and likely never, going to be able to have it fully themable like the rest of KDE. This is a choice they have made. This is a security choice they have made. And whilst I might not be fully happy about it, I understand why they've done it. Whilst the Oxygen global theme, cursor theme, and icon theme have been the main focus for this initial release, there are other components which do exist out there. There is an Oxygen for GTK. It last had a minor update about a year ago. Any serious work, quite a bit longer than that. I don't know what kind of state it's in. I don't know what you would need to modify to really bring it in line for modern systems, but that does exist. Also, there is TTF Oxygen. This is a Oxygen font family. It's on the AUR. It hasn't been maintained in quite a while. Last update was 6 years ago. Again, I'm not entirely sure what state it's in. These are not part of the core revival, but there are all of these little components scattered around here and there that could be brought into the fold as well if the developers really want to do everything. Right now, it's kind of unclear exactly how far they want to take things. Do they just want to have core KDE working well? Do they want to make GTK stuff work well? Do they want to go and even worry about things like the tiling editor and the overview? Can they even worry about it? I'm actually not sure how much of that stuff can be messed around with a general theme. I'm liking it though, and I'm enjoying experimenting with it. I'm enjoying slightly tweaking the color scheme to be exactly the way I want it, and yeah, I'm honestly just having fun, and it's kind of been a while since I've, really, messed with something new like this, new old like this. I've been kind of using my same style for so long that having something different is just a nice change. So if you want to make use of Oxygen on Arch Linux, there is a package specifically for Oxygen that is this one right here, Oxygen 6.7.0-1. Check that one out. It will link out to the other stuff that is needed, the Oxygen cursors and Oxygen 5. This one is optional to install, but you probably should just go and install it as well. Now that it's technically a semi-official part of KDE, I do wonder what that actually means for the future of the project and how Oxygen is going to influence future Breeze and future design languages being used by KDE. I don't think we're going to go back to exactly what Oxygen was doing, but I do hope some of the excitement around Oxygen does bring some interest in a different look and learning from the past and sort of experimenting with what a interface can look like. It doesn't just have to be everything is flat. That is not the only correct way of doing things. This was a kind of rambly video and I jumped around quite a bit, but I think when you're dealing with a theme, there's just so many little things here and there that I don't know how to do like a well-structured thing for that. So hopefully you got some of my energy, and maybe that's a good enough reason to go and give Oxygen a try. Install the packages, try it out. If you don't like it, don't use it. But I am certainly vibing with it. So I will be sticking with it for the foreseeable future. If I find something which bothers me about it, hey, maybe I won't. And maybe I'll keep modifying the colors. Maybe I'll change my accent color. Who knows exactly what I'm going to do? So that is it for me. If you enjoy the video, I hope you enjoy the video, and I'm going to go. So let me know your thoughts on Oxygen down below. Have you tried it out yourself? Are you not going to try it out? Are you even using Plasma? I would love to know. So if you liked the video, go like the video, go subscribe as well, and if you really like the video and you want to become one of these amazing people over here, check out the Patreon, subscribe to Daily Bearer Pay, linked in the description down below. That's going to be it for me, and what a theme.